Good afternoon. Welcome to the Concord Bookshop. Today we're very proud to have Alan St. John, who wrote the book Clapton's Guitar. I see many of you have it already. And it's all about the building, following the building of a Wayne Henderson guitar. That's probably a bit different than the Harmony that you have sitting in your basement right now. And in addition, he brought a couple of friends with him. One is T.J. Thompson, who's a world famous and local luthier. We also have guitar builder Conley, who is a guitar player, mandolin player, basic string player. Played with such bands, I guess, Little Feat.
Well, it's just sort of shared stages with them.
Shared stages with Little Feat.
Best way to say it, to be honest.
I've shared buildings with Little Feat.
That's about it. And thanks for coming. Thank you for the nice introduction, Bert. I'm Alan St. John. This is Clapton's Guitar, the book. This is very much like Clapton's Guitar, the guitar. You can see it on the cover. A definite family resemblance, and basically this book is the story of a particular guitar being made. A guitar, Wayne Henderson number 327. It was made for Eric Clapton, and it's a really kind of a strange and unusual story. But it's also, the book is not only about that guitar, but it's a book about guitars, and it's a book about these wonderful instruments and how they get made, and it's a book about just craftsmanship. And that's really, what this book is about, and that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about here a little bit. And I think for starters, I'll read just a little bit from the very beginning of the book, just to kind of give you a little hint of how this thing starts. And it starts out as such. This is a chapter called "The $100,000 Guitar." "I think it's great," said Eric Clapton. That's more or less how he said it too. Said Eric Clapton as he looked first at his host and then at the magical musical instrument in his lap. "Especially on the top strings. It's easy to bend. It's got a good ringing quality." And so begins the legend of Clapton's guitar. The scene was a recording studio in New York City in 1994. Tim Duffy, a recording engineer by trade, was showing Clapton his facility, hoping he'd sign on to cut an album there. And while the legendary performer was suitably impressed by the audiophile recording gear, what really captured his imagination was Duffy's own acoustic guitar. "It's flat," said Clapton. "It's incredibly flat." "The tone," said Duffy. "No, the fingerboard, or is that my imagination?" Clapton noodled a bit, playing some of the sweet and soulful blues riffs that earned Grammys, gold records, and even gold-plated guitars. "It's lovely. I'd never heard anything about this guy before." That guy was Wayne Henderson. It's no surprise that even Eric Clapton, one of the world's certifiable guitar freaks, didn't know anything about him. Henderson lives in rural Rugby, Virginia, population 7, or as Wayne will say, basically, it's the kind of place where you have to take turns being the mayor, the preacher, and the town drunk. Started in 1994. You fast forward, 6 or 7 years later, and simply he hasn't built the guitar. It's just an order. It's just it's just a concept for a guitar. It's about a guy like Wayne Henderson. I think a lot of guys who do what he does it's not it's a relatively complex I think motivation for them in terms of what they do. I think it's not just, hey, I'm doing this, a dollars and cents relationship. It's about it's about their art. It's about their creativity. It's about and different kinds of motivations. Like one of the things that's funny about the way Wayne goes about things, and I don't know if TJ operates on the same motivation, but people will come up to him and just do all sorts of weird like they'll bake pies for him. this one of his neighbors just like, but every couple weeks there'd just, there'd be a freshly baked lemon pie up on his doorstep, and all of a sudden, like, her husband got the guitar built.
This is a really great guitar, but I almost wish that you could have like 2 years of playing and you could hear the same instrument, because the top will start to move musically, and some really interesting things will start to happen to this guitar, but it's in a great place right now.
Okay.
Here's one that's been moving for a while.
I loaned this to Seth about a week ago.
And I almost didn't come today because I had to bring this back. See how much? One of the things that I do when I travel and play is, probably like most musicians, is that I walk in every music store that I drive by and try everything. All the guitars that I've ever played and owned, sold, bought, the two finest instruments that I've ever played were built by him.
What?
This one, no, and this isn't any form of flattery. It's just like, when you get behind a vehicle, you start it up and you drive it around the corner and you've been in it's just that. Something like when you pick up this instrument, it almost feels like it's made out of fluff. There's like no excess weight on this thing. You can just tell as soon as you pick it up that it's going to do what you want to do.
They thought it was curl in the wood. And it's actually burn marks from the saw. When they pushed it through there's a big saw blade, big circular saw blade, that was very dull. It burned the resins, and it cooked the resins into the Brazilian rosewood. So you see these lines like this. So it's actually very desirable. I got this wood out, even though it's a defect. Yeah. I was buddies with the guy who was running the wood factory at the Martin Company in 1983. And he said, "Oh, have at it." So I went up in the attic and I found all this wood, and he sold it to me very cheaply.
So I have a question for you. So is the vertical grain actually the grain itself? Because it's pretty dramatic how it goes from that to
this is the quarter-sawn section.
Yep.
And this is the flat-sawn section. So as the tree is growing, the grain is going like this, and they're just sawing across it.
I see, right. I can visualize it now, right,
Yeah.
right.
So you're looking, the spruce top is always quarter-sawn, and that's
So
what you see.
you're looking at the wood cut this way, the tree is growing this way, it's cut
Right.
this way, right?
And you will never see a flat-sawn top. It's really, it's less stable, which is why backs that are flat-sawn tend to crack more easily.
I see.
So what you want is a combination of the quarter-sawn wood, like this section, and this because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to mix them together. But you don't want so much of the flat-sawn wood that if it moves this way, it compresses in and out as much as a quarter of an inch across the span of this guitar. So that's why so many guitars split apart in Brazilian. The most important thing actually is that you build it now. I don't build guitars in the summertime. If you build it during this time of the year when it's dry, then they don't crack apart in the wintertime.
Oh, I see.
But that's why most of the guitars you see that are falling apart and cracked to pieces.
maybe
Well, I built it at 28.
Sounds low.
That's really low. That's really low. But if I'm shipping a guitar to New York, I know it's going to fall apart if I don't build it at 28, because the apartment's there and it's so hot in the wintertime, they just crank up the heat and they'll just dry out and blow apart.
Right.
So it's a trade-off. If you build it at 28% and then in the summertime, when it takes on water, it will feel sort of waterlogged. It will sound heavy too.
Right, right.
Like Seth likes this guitar so much now because it's really dry in here, and guitars tend to like dry climates like this. I mean, they're really happy right now. In the summertime, this guitar won't sound quite so. About the thickness of 2/4.
Yeah,
It's so thin. It's really considered a veneer. So that's why Seth is saying there's almost nothing to it. It's very
Even the
light.
back is that thin?
Yeah.
Even the back, wow.
Yeah, the back is actually thinner than the top.
Really?
I mean, if you can think in thousandths of an inch, I'll just tell you, this back is 80 thousandths, which is it's about 2 dimes or something like that. The tops range between 120 thousandths and 100,000. So
Yeah, this is
1/10.
T.J. Thompson, Philosopher King. I am not easily surprised. Trick endings to movies don't take me aback. The evening news often disgusts me, but rarely shocks me. But as I headed back to Rugby, and that's where Wayne lives, in December to find out what these guitars had become, my thoughts kept turning to something T.J. Thompson said to me at lunch one midsummer afternoon before this whole Clapton guitar adventure had even started. I was shocked by what he said, and shocked by the fact that big question. What is it that separates a magical guitar from a merely great one? What is the nature of that freak thing? I pressed on and figured that I would get one of two answers. A, it's about choosing the right wood for the top and the right bracing configuration, or B, it's like Louis Armstrong said about jazz. If you have to ask, you'll never know. I think, said TJ, and then he stopped. And he paused for 18 full seconds. I won't do that, but it's a very long time. It's a combination, I guess, of about 600 things. And it's hard to say what's more important than the other. It's the amalgam. Do you want any coffee? The waitress interrupted. We argued about the check, and then TJ refocused on the question. What would be number one, and what would be 597, I prodded. I can probably answer that. Number one is, and TJ paused for 11 more seconds, number one is the state of the mind of the person building the guitar.